Nearly 4,000 Haitian migrants have been expelled from the U.S. in the last 9 days. The numbers are part of the Department of Homeland Security's latest deportation blitz. The department is working to remove as many as 30,000 migrants, many of whom are from Haiti, from the Del Rio, Texas area. Out of the roughly 4,000 deportations, 2,300 were parents and children who entered U.S. border custody as families. The deportees were forced to leave the United States without ever having the chance to seek asylum. The speed at which these deportations are occurring stem from a Trump-era policy known as Title 42. The policy was put in place at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. It was part of the previous administration's efforts to limit the spread of COVID-19 nationwide. Under the order, Customs and Border Patrol can prohibit any individual from entering the United States, whether it's because of travel restrictions or because they illegally entered the country to bypass screening measures. In addition, an individual who crosses into the country illegally will not be held in a border facility to await processing. Instead, they will be immediately expelled to their last country of residence before entering the U.S. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us now for more on all of this. Hi, Camilo. You cover immigration. Have we ever seen such a rapid deportation process like this one before?
Hi, Tanya. Since March 2020, U.S. border officials have used this public health law to expel hundreds of thousands of migrants and asylum seekers by land to Mexico. But of course, these mass expulsions to Haiti are occurring by air. This is what makes this operation significant. 37 deportation flights have landed in Haiti in just 9 days, with nearly 4,000 deportees on board. Just to add some perspective to this huge operation, I can tell you that in all of fiscal year 2020, Tanya, Immigration and Customs Enforcement reported deporting fewer than 900 Haitians in all of that fiscal year. So this is a huge operation that the Biden administration has launched to send a message to would-be migrants that they should not come here because they might be expelled to Haiti, a country where many of these people have not lived in for years because they had been working in countries like Chile, Brazil, and other parts of South America. So this could rapidly turn into one of the swiftest and largest U.S. deportation campaigns by air. That is an important aspect that we should highlight. The other characteristic that makes us significant is that just last month, Tanya, deportations to Haiti were actually suspended because of that deadly earthquake that killed more than 2,000 people. And the Biden administration on multiple occasions has suspended deportation flights to this country because of the dire conditions there, because of the widespread insecurity, because of the extreme poverty, and of course because of the political turmoil in that country.
You know, I'm just curious about the logistics of these flights, moving these massive numbers of migrants back to Haiti. Were the migrants given the option of returning to the country they'd been living in before the U.S.? As you said, many of them had been living for months in other countries in Latin America. And were they aware of where they were going as they boarded these planes?
That's a great question. We know that all of the Haitian migrants who were encountered in Del Rio, who have been subsequently expelled from the U.S., have all been sent to Haiti. The Biden administration has been talking with Chile and Brazil to try to convince these countries to take in migrants from Haiti who used to live in these South American nations, but no deportations have occurred to either Chile or Brazil. So all of these Haitian deportees are landing in Haiti. And this, according to experts and advocates, has exacerbated the disruption caused by these expulsions. We know that more than 200 of the deportees that have deplaned in Haiti since September 19th are children of Haitian parents who were born in Chile, Brazil, and other parts of South America, and they don't even have Haitian passports, Tanya.
So, Camilo, we do know that at one point there were roughly 15,000 Haitian migrants living under that bridge in Del Rio, Texas. 4,000 have been deported. Do we know the fate of the other thousands of migrants?
Sure. So the overall number that the Department of Homeland Security has been using is 30,000. That is the number of migrants who were encountered in Del Rio since September 9th. So out of those 30,000, the Department of Homeland Security said that about 13,000 were processed under regular immigration laws and allowed to see a judge to potentially seek asylum. 3,000 of those folks were sent to ICE detention facilities. The department has said that an additional 8,000 migrants, most of them from Haiti, as we know, returned to Mexico voluntarily, probably because they feared that they could be expelled during this operation. And we know that another 4,000 migrants, again, many of them from Haiti, are currently in U.S. border custody awaiting processing. These folks could be expelled to Haiti under Title 42, just like the 4,000 or so that have been expelled or so far, or they could be allowed to seek asylum and to make another immigration case here in the U.S. So that is really the breakdown that we have. This has angered Republicans because they want the Biden administration to expel more Haitians to Haiti, but it has also angered Democrats and advocates for asylum seekers because they don't think any expulsions should be taking place to Haiti, a country, again, that is reeling from this devastating earthquake, from all of these conditions like widespread poverty and insecurity. And again, what worries these advocates is that the people being expelled to Haiti are not being allowed to seek asylum. They're not even allowed to make an application for U.S. refuge.
Right. And Camilo, obviously this is all happening during a pandemic. What is being done to ensure that these people are not sick or spreading COVID when they are boarding these planes and being deported back to Haiti?
Yes, so for context, Tanya, Border Patrol has, throughout the pandemic, declined to offer vaccination to migrants in its custody. That is the current policy, and it has been that way since the outset of the pandemic. They also have not been testing migrants for the coronavirus. They've been relying on NGOs, shelters, and even hospitals to test migrants who may be sick. So that is important to note. We also understand that the Haitians who are being returned to Haiti, they are not being tested by U.S. officials before they board these deportation flights. It is the Haitian Public Health Ministry that is testing these migrants for the coronavirus once they land in Haiti. So this obviously has concerned not just people in Haiti, but advocates who say that if the U.S. objective is to protect public health through these expulsions, then these migrants should be tested and even offered vaccines in the U.S. So they don't spread the coronavirus in Haiti, a country with an extremely low vaccination rate. I think it is the lowest in the Western Hemisphere.
All right. Well, Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you so much for sharing your reporting with us. We appreciate it.